Yo, what's good, everybody? Today is July the 1st, 2025. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you, God, for yet another opportunity of prayer, God. We just thank you, God, for the gift of life, oh God. We thank you, God, for one another, oh God. We thank you, God, just for your presence, your love. We ask you, God, that you would bless this broadcast, oh God. We ask you, God, that you would just look on all your children, all your creatures all over this world. Oh God, be with us. Bless this broadcast as well as the viewers and their families. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Yo, what's good, everybody? Give y'all a chance to come on in. Um, didn't have much to talk about. I want to say congratulations to all the graduates that still graduating. I think we're about at the end of that graduation season for high school throughout the country. Um, us Northerners, we're later than everybody else. But congratulations to all the graduates as well as all of the staff for our schools, for our children. Um, Figured I'd go ahead and go it live since you know it's the first of the month freestyle, but I really didn't have much to talk about. Um, so unless you guys come in and have something you guys want to discuss that happened over the last week or so that we didn't cover, we're gonna be in and out. You know what I'm saying? I see somebody just joined. Welcome. Appreciate you guys. Get in the comments. Let me know if you guys have anything that you want to discuss. Um, I see that we had they had closing arguments in the Diddy trial. Um, haven't really watched much of the coverage or transcripts in the last couple of weeks. Just wanted to know what you guys thought of that. Of course, shout out to everybody that made it to the Rock the Bells tour at the Prudential Center this weekend. If anybody that's viewing out there got something that they want to share about that experience, please feel free to do so. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, but it was a great time. I seen various people, mad people that I know. It would have been like a family reunion up in there. It was quite a few that went and partook in the Rock the Bells show. But yeah, if you was gonna go to a hip hop concert, that was the one to go to, man. I see that all the different eras were represented. But like everybody had a good time. From the pictures that I seen and the covers that I seen online, they were playing some of the portions on Sirius Radio. So yeah, shout out to Brick City Home for representing and hosting a well put together event. Shout out to LL Cool J for putting it all together. And all everybody that attended, making it a success, as well as all the participants throughout the years that we've enjoyed their music and whatnot. Um, what you guys plan on doing for the 4th of July? Anybody celebrating the 4th of July? Mm, trying to think of what else was there. Actually been a quiet week, which is totally unusual. um, with the leader of our great nation, so to speak. It's been a quiet week. I don't know if I should be worried or not. Mm, but yeah, I just pretty much, like I said, I wanted to come on and say what's up for those there. I didn't have much to. I had a pretty busy day. Taking care of some things, some personal things, and um, didn't really have much to talk about. But I said, I will give an opportunity for those that wanted to share or just come together for a quick minute or so, um, chance to do so. But like I said, I don't see anybody in the comments. I don't see anybody out there. So we'll probably just get ready to go ahead and convene again next week. um, Enjoy some family time, give me something to eat, and relax and chill. Um, I asked about the 4th of July because I was looking at, I was, I went down a rabbit hole and I was just thinking about why do we celebrate the July the 4th and what does the 4th of July really mean? What does it symbolize? You know, can you really break in? can you really break independence from whoever stole the land that you now occupy? That was a whole conversation, but I went down that rabbit hole. And it was like, even in the concept of the Fourth of July, it was more or less just the 13 colonies in the beginning. And I thought it was interesting because I believe it was I forgot which one of them guys, one of the founding fathers, when he wrote the letter, he had incorporated denouncing the slave trade. And what's good on that? What's good, Sam? Hey Sam, did you have anything that you want to come on and talk about this first of the month freestyle show? Pertaining to the Fourth of July, anything else going on in current affairs? I can send you the link. It's up to you. But yeah, I thought that was just interesting. And I'm quite sure you know a little bit more historically about the Fourth of July and what it represents than I do. Um, but it was just a matter of, like I said, initially it was a 13 colony. So uh, does the whole country get to celebrate the Fourth of July? But I thought it was pretty interesting that when it was first drafted and first written, um, it had the denunciation of Great Britain in the usage of the slave trade. But the fact that they took it out before they put the final edition out, they said, "Nah, we're gonna take that part out." It's like, what was that really all about? Hey, what's good, Nicole? All right, Sam, I got it coming. What's good, Nick? And Nick, you got to hit me up. Hit me up on Messenger so we can figure out when we going do that show we were talking about on the red flags and whatnot. Let me see real quick. Let me get this link to Sam. Um, shit. Um, Hey Nicole, did you make it out to the Rock the Bell concert? I know a time was definitely had. Like I said, I seen different footage and different post pictures that people were posting. Um, Something that I definitely would have loved to been at, but unfortunately, I had other things going on. But yeah, man, it was like it was a good time. Nah, you ain't go. Okay. Yeah, you probably wouldn't be there because Jim Jones wasn't there. I know you're a big Jim Jones fan. Jimmy, I missed it. My bro and his wife went. Okay. Yeah, we could talk about that a little bit too. Uh, while we waiting on Sam to come in. Well, there ain't really much to talk about. I'm going to the Pastor Mike. Yeah, my god brother went to the last one that they had. Well, the first one that they had at I think it was at
Fox News,
Madison
YouTube.
Square Garden maybe a year or two ago, and it was he said it was absolutely crazy and bonkers to be there in person. But uh, Cassidy, he definitely did his thing with the Pastor Mike. That was a great concept, especially that he came up with it, during the pandemic, whatnot. But those Pastor Mikes, man, yeah, I wouldn't mind going to one of those events either. And then y'all know I've told this story. Hey, what's good, Sam? I've
What's
told
going on?
how I came up with creating the show, but at the same time, I played. D Nice played a big part in it because D Nice was doing the club quarantine during the pandemic, when everything first started, where he would just go play these amazing sets on Instagram live, and it was like wow, like it was just crazy because we really couldn't go out. You couldn't go to the club. You couldn't, you know what I mean? So for D Nice to be offering his skills for free for everybody and still be doing it, so I wouldn't mind actually going to one of the now that they you know he's actually doing now that it's back open up, so to speak, the country. He's actually doing Club Quarantine live events. And he has one coming up. Actually, he's at Essence Fest this week doing one with a super lineup. So I wouldn't mind going to one of those two either. Go past the mic show or Club Quarantine with D Nice. Actually being there in person, it's already going to be epic because it's going to be definitely like you said. Now we're a little bit older, we're a little bit more seasoned, so to speak. So then it will be no different than our parents going to see the Temptations and the Four Tops and the Gap Band, all they greats at that time. But it's just like more or less like a hip hop version of these in this era. So it would be super cool. I thought it was dope that they LL actually included Coach Contra this year to the Rock the Bell suit. Them little boys are heating up. And then I was doing some research last week on Coach Contra because my son had put me down on them. I had seen them before, but my son really put me on them, and they dope. But actually, two of those young men are actually Rise Kai's. For the hip hop heads that know who Rise Kai is, two of those young men are his sons. So it's like the second generation of hip hop at its finest. So it's very dope and cool to be in, see all this stuff, even second and third generation hip hop artists. Even when you go to the Wu-Tang show now, with Old Dirty Bastard being gone, to see his son up there actually performing and looking so much like him and actually, spitting his lyrics is pretty dope. It's a dope experience. Like KRS once said in his infamous, who that 50 years down the line, who could start this? We could say we was the real hip hop artists. And here it is, 50 years later, where actually hip hop is still here, and we are in the second and third generation. So, it is a blessing to me and something that we take pride in because we thought it was going to be just a fad. It wasn't sure if hip hop was going to still be around. It might last as long as disco and different things of that nature. There, yeah, definitely look Coach Contra up. Those boys are nice. They definitely nice. Matter of fact, I'll send you something from them. Because they got a couple of freestyles out there that's pretty dope. Yeah, but what's good, Sam?
Hey, what's going on, bro?
Chilling, man.
Yeah, I got in a few minutes late. I always try to tune in,
Uh-huh.
and I always enjoy like positive dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a men's group meeting at my house this past Saturday,
Okay.
and we do it the last Saturday of every month, and it's just a bunch of some old heads, some what they call some big bros, some OGs, some
Mm-hmm.
and we was just talking about the 4th of July coming up, and we all have different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm you know retired military, so I've been like all over the world, and I see how other people live, and then coming back here, I see like my neighbor. Um, 2 years ago, the wife got her citizenship, and they're from India. And the 4th of July, she had a gang of flags, American flags. They had the fireworks. They had everything going like that. Hair, like she said she loved to be an American, and she's new to America, so of course she may be a little naive to like some of the ins and outs, but we definitely talk a lot, and I see a lot of people that when they receive their citizenship and become naturalized, they they show a lot of appreciation. And I tell people all the time also, when I hear like the stolen land and things like that, and I'm like, well, is Atlanta, Fulton County going to give up all their land for the Apaches that own that land and it was taken from them?
Mm-hmm.
is Wakefield, North Carolina, in North Raleigh, are they going to give their land up because it belonged to the Cherokees?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think a lot of that land was swindled. Like I know was, Manhattan was purchased for like $14. Back
Yeah, something
back
crazy. Yeah,
yeah, because the Indians didn't have the concept of money. I mean,
exactly. It was different. Yeah,
well, $14 back then was probably probably 100,000 now, maybe. Like you could get a loaf of bread for half a cent, or something like that. But I definitely understand like different points of view, and I just think that, like, to me, I think everybody has a sense of why they may celebrate 4th of July. Some people just, have a 4-day weekend, have a cookout, do some line dances. It's just time off from work.
yeah,
But there's like a lot of people that are naturalized, like my mother was, my neighbors, and a few people in the neighborhood, and they're like, they look at it like more patriotic, like the storybook. When you grew up on like 7 Mile, and you lived in the Bronx, you grew up like, if you grew up in the streets and stuff, you have a different outlook on what's American Bride,
yeah.
what's this and that. And I remember when 9/11 happened, man, you had jokers in the hood talking about USA. Everybody, Carl Kanai was printing out American flag stuff, cross colors had American, like everybody was acting like they was, you know, everybody was being patriotic after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Every day you see the firefighters out taking up money, just all types of stuff. So I think for everybody, the 4th of July means something definitely different. For me, it just, it represents like, if initially it meant like, okay, why join the military? I was fighting for this country, for our rights and all that stuff. And where most of that was true, in hindsight now, I know that the US, we weren't always angels. We kicked off and we manipulated a whole lot of things that kick off in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We're the instigator. Like North Korea never talks to South Korea. The
Mm-hmm.
US is always in between that.
Mm-hmm.
The South Korea talked to us and then we relay it to North Korea and vice versa. Why can't they talk to each other? Like, why do we have to be the middleman?
Why can't you just mind your business?
Yeah. Well, I kind of understand that too. Like it's about power and allies. And I think it hurt us more where we have to intercede, because when you look at the world map, you see how small the US is. And the US is literally only 3% of the world population. Like literally maybe 3.5%. So it's like our economy, everything we do now is based off of debt, on trade, on all these things. Because if you go back to the 40s, before FDR outlawed gold, when he outlawed gold and everything, and like if you got caught with any, it was confiscated. And it used to say a gold certificate on your dollar, or $5. It used to say gold certificate. Then after FDR seized all the gold from people, it changed to silver certificate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when, when I was growing up, everybody was, oh, you got the silver certificate, it's worth silver.
Mm-hmm.
Now you look at the bottom of your bill and it says certificate of debt. Like it's not worth gold, it's not worth silver.
Ain't worth nothing but that.
The US dollar is based off of lending and all that stuff. Like China owns like almost $2 trillion of our debt. Like they bought it. And we have to pay them 900 what is it? Like $900 million a year in interest.
It's a crazy amount, because I was just doing some research literally about maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it was funny because I don't even remember how I got into that or looking at what I was looking at, but it was
Yeah.
talking about how you know how sort of how we're led to believe. Let's put it that way. Or we're told that when we pay our taxes, that goes for road construction and different things that they for states that actually have tolls and stuff. That's where that money goes to or whatnot. And it was explaining how that's really not true because actually in the state of New Jersey, the New Jersey Turnpike as well as the Garden State Parkway, they both are individually owned. Not only are they individually owned, they're owned by China. So it's like, why are we paying money to ride on the streets that we've already been taxed on? You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
And where is that money really going other than going back to them? But the average person, because if we don't look into these different things, we don't know. And just like you said earlier, as far as them buying Manhattan from for $14, it made me think about it's like the same. I don't even, like you said, I don't believe, and I can't dare speak for the Native Americans, but one, like you say, they didn't have the concept of money like we do in this modern day age. But also, I don't think that they really felt like, okay, it's not always what you do. Sometimes it's like what you do. You know what I mean? As you were saying, I thought about the scenario in barbershop. Here it is. Calvin, he's ready to sell the shop. You know what I mean? He's ready to make a quick buck. Hey, look, man, but this is a staple in the community. So, Mr. Keith David, I forgot his character name, but come on, man. Just make sure that you keep the barbershop here. Oh, yeah. What do you do? As soon as he signed the paperwork, yeah, I'm going to keep the barbershop. I'm going to keep the name, but we're going to turn this into a strip joint.
Yeah. Get some trim.
Exactly. So if they had known that ahead of time, what was to become, I think they'd have been a little bit more hesitant in you know what I mean, selling.
Yeah, and I think you got to look at I would think that all of us have relatives that never left their city or never left
people that yeah.
So it's like when you go to a barbershop by military base, like around Fort Bragg or Fort Benning or any place, you go to that barbershop and you hear everybody talking inside the barbershop. People are talking about Osan, Korea. Oh man, you remember the stage when you go down to Itaewon or down range, and everything is about the world. Like who has gone in different places of the world. But when you go to a place like you're up in a shop in Detroit or someplace that's not around the military,
it's a different conversation.
They're talking about, oh man, we went to Raleigh, or we went to Greensboro, or we went to Charlotte,
Atlanta for Freaknik.
It's like your world has opened up so much, and I think it's that same thing. Is like the Indians didn't have a concept because they never went outside 2, 3, or 4 miles out of their zone. So they didn't really understand. So when the settlers or whoever was talking about, oh, well, we took a collection and we'll give you $14. They're like, really 14? What's this paper? Oh, and we'll give you these furs and we'll give you some sugar. We'll give you, these things right there. And they taste the sugar. That's why back in those days, sugar was like the most valuable thing.
Yeah.
And then salt.
They didn't have to chop the trees anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I just think the concept is definitely different, but I just think I try to get people to focus on, all along my Facebook timeline, I'm hearing people talk about, oh, that big, beautiful bill. And, oh man, all these people going to lose their health care, just a whole lot of stuff. And I'm sitting there thinking I sat there and watched 7 hours of them on Capitol Hill, reviewing it. And they made the young lady read all 940 pages word for word. And it took her 16 hours. And she was about to pass out because only one person can read it, the clerk. So she was about to pass out drinking water. She was stuttering, imagine talking for 16 hours straight.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
And so it's like people are like hating on certain things, but instead of us researching for ourselves, I hear people just because it's supposed to be for this one person.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting here like, okay, there's some key things that we might be able to use. So let's get our credit right. Let's do this so when this money come, we can apply for this money.
You're more optimistic. You're looking for the positive in the situation.
Well, in every
Yeah.
when Biden had his thing, that Inflation Reduction Act, I was looking for, okay, what can my people use?
Mhm.
When Obama was doing stuff, I was like, what can my people do? When Clinton was in, I voted for Ross Perot, and Clinton beat him. And I was like, what is going to be the benefit? And my thing is like, when you mention the taxes and stuff, like to pay for the highways, like it's paid for with the federal highway tax. But now that they're starting to explode, like on EVs, now they're talking about taxing people per mileage because less people are buying gasoline. Like in North Carolina, the gas tax, when you look at that $3, 52 cents of that is for the federal highway tax for every gallon. So that's what's paying for the highways and all that. But then the feds also give grant money, so that's why they're doing all this construction, and it's like how I see what they did with New York after they got federal money to pay for some of the roads downtown. And then the governor does the congestion pricing to charge folks to drive in an area that taxpayers already pay for. Like, how you going to charge?
Yeah, at some point, like, how much is enough?
and it's almost like you segregating because everybody can't afford to pay $25 to go in an area that they've been going to their whole life.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they trying to force people to use public transportation. They trying to, like the mayor of DC rode in the Metro bus, I believe it was yesterday or the day before. And she did this whole it was amazing. And I'm sitting here like, you sound so dang on privileged.
Exactly.
Like, it was amazing to ride the public bus and you was able to interact
every single day.
knowing that that's the only time you're going to be on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just like, I think we just have to change. Like, we have to change focus. Our community, we got to try to change focus and stay away from like the smoke screens and do like them dang on Nigerians that come here to the US and they thrive, or them dang on Indians and even the Mexicans that come here and they grind to get their citizenship, and then they work on bringing family members, and they build.
Don't forget Chinese now, because there's a Chinese restaurant in every hood in America.
Oh yeah, and the funniest thing about the Chinese people, a lot of people don't notice that the highest number of people deported every year are Chinese from overstaying their visas, their student visas, work visas. Like, they're the number one group that are deported, even more than Hispanic, more than anybody else. So that tells you the sheer numbers of Chinese folks, because you have to think China is like a third of the world population.
Yeah.
So of course those numbers are going to be larger. But when I see like everybody trying to get here to the US, like everybody, is trying to get here. They ain't trying to get to China. They're not trying to get to Somalia. They're not trying to get to Syria, and they're trying to get here. And I'm like, because it is a lot of opportunity, like you can get your hustle on in America, and I just think we have to start getting that grind back like we used to have in the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. We had that grind in us. But now it's like people are like, oh, I don't want to be no doorman, or I don't want to be the garbage man. them jokers get paid good and they got amazing benefits. But oh no, that's beneath me. And I'm sitting here like, come on, you better. Sometimes you have to be uncomfortable to get to where you need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And like everybody now, we in the society, especially the younger group, they just want everything handed to them. And so I just think like when I see the Independence and 4th of July, I just think about mostly what comes to mind are people like my neighbors, like my mother, who became naturalized. I think it was in 1977. And she used all the benefits. She got her college. It was paid for. She used all the resources available to her. So I'm like, why can't we start using resources here? Because in our community, we have to stop relying on certain folks to bail us out or to take care of us. We got to come together and not just talk about it, but be about it.
Do you think that's easier said than done?
No, it's all about some discipline. Like we got to get our sisters to. I'm gonna talk about every dynamic, the brothers and the sisters. We got to get our sisters to, understand you beautiful how you are. You don't need no mink lashes. You don't need 6-inch nails. You don't need the BBL. We love you like we love you. And they're trying to be the Cardi B because they see the YNs or whoever lusting after them when the unks and stuff, I'm not sure the whole age, but when you get up there, it's like you're not looking at those things. You're looking at somebody that will respect you and watch your back and protect you back. You ain't looking just for the hip to waist ratio and all that, and that's what I think we have to start just getting more discipline. Like stop having to buy, like when you got the rent due, but my baby want that PlayStation 5, and you basically get the PlayStation 5 and say, let God let go. I'm gonna let God take care of it. You know what I'm saying? We got to have discipline. It's easier said because all these dang on foreigners come here every day and they doing it. A guy 6 houses down from me, he been here in the US for 17 years and owned 22 properties. And I was like, dude, I said, did you have a company in Mexico? He's like, no, I came here with $500.15. And I worked, I got my citizenship in 6 years. And once I got that, I worked on moving my parents here, getting their citizenship. And then, excuse me. Mm. And he's like, I just save. And I'm sitting there like, he's a general contractor now. And I'm like, dude, why don't you get like a new truck? Because his truck is raggedy, like it's bungee cords on the back door holding it and stuff.
Hey,
and
it ain't needed. It ain't necessary.
I said, man, why don't you get a new truck? And he's like, no, if I get a new truck, people start asking me for discounts. But when they see my truck, they feel sorry for me. So sometimes they pay me even more.
Hustle, yeah.
Like, I'm like, that's the game, like he was he handing out gems on how all these dang on Hispanics, we see them driving around in these raggedy vans or the old 1988 S10 pickup with all the ladders on it. But then at night, they're up there at Mi Casitas or whatever, pulling up in the dually truck, got a gold chain with the eagle with the big belt buckle on, shirt unbuttoned down to the belly button. Like, like they don't flex. They don't have to flex all the time. They grind, they work. And it's like, we just have to get back like that. That's how we used to be, and I'm talking about in general.
Yeah, and I was about to ask you, so even to that point, because, it's always two sides of the coin. And I agree with you wholeheartedly from that aspect. But do you think, or do you acknowledge the fact, or is that a real thing, or is it just in our minds that it's a lot easier for other groups of people to do that as opposed to blacks in America? You know what I mean? When we talking about whether we getting approved for a loan for a house. You know, many of us do have houses, but we notice how even I used to always, it used to baffle me growing up in Newark, right? How like I talked about the Chinese earlier, just jokingly. And I'm like, if the Newark riots, the Detroit riots, the 68, 67, those respective years, if they were so prevalent, and they talk about the Great Migration, when these became predominantly African American cities, just using those two as examples because there was riots everywhere. But why is it that in Jersey we have the bodega, we have the corner store, but none of those corner stores are African American, none of those are black owned, none of our gas stations are black owned, none of our shopping stores downtown are black owned, but we've been the people that's been occupying this space for all these years. Why aren't we the owners of corner stores? Why aren't we owners of gas stations, more mom and pop shops? You know what I mean? It's not like even the liquor stores. Like liquor stores up north are not like it is here in North Carolina, where ABC, the state runs everything. You know, you can have mom and pop shops up there. What makes it so hard for them is it because I don't believe that it's just a lack of us wanting to do it. I think they put the obstacle in our way to make it more difficult or make us feel defeated, so to speak, to where we feel like we can't achieve those type of things.
Yeah, I think it's more of programming. You know, and I tell everybody we're all products of our environment, wherever we grew up at. But it's our choice if we want to be a good product or a bad product. And when you talk about like the bodegas and all those things, think about like Tulsa, Oklahoma. You hear everybody talking about, oh, the Klan and that Democratic governor let the Klan in and slaughtered all them businesses and killed people. And this is the thing. The U.S. government gave Tulsa $400 million. In today's time is probably close to, over $1 billion to rebuild. But what happened was during the rebuilding, you had the Chinese folks was already there because they helped build the railroads. Like you go to Oklahoma and just like how we have Spanish on some of our stuff and at the DMV on like a lot of applications, they have Chinese on theirs in Oklahoma. A lot of people don't know that. And what happened is the Chinese folks they started to say, hey, I got the cleaners and I got this. And they started doing it twice as good. And next thing you know, all the brothers and sisters in Tulsa, instead of going to the other brothers and sisters to, their businesses, they started going to the Chinese and the white folks. And that's the reason why in the rebuilding, it failed because we stopped going to the brothers and sisters and started going to the Chinese and the white folks.
But I think a part of that, I won't go as far as say systematic racism, but part of that is systematic because now, like you say, even if it was equivalent to $1 billion, they get $400 million to rebuild. Now part of that rebuild has to be them. It wasn't like, I don't believe that it was where they just gave Black Wall Street $400 for those businesses. Like, we gonna give y'all this money to rebuild, but you have to be inclusive now, and you have to let these white shops in. You have to let, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but inclusive is now. That's the buzzword now. But back then, like when I was in the military, every dang on cleaners around Fort Bragg is owned by Koreans and Asians. And them jokers start your jeans, they start your BDUs, they start harder than anybody else. And they have it done same day. I go to one guy, brother, he is a command sergeant major. He retired and opened up his own cleaners where he delivered to the barracks. But the thing was, instead of having it the same day, it would take him a week. And everybody was going out to the NCO club, on the weekend. You wanted your stuff ready, back in the days, you wanted your stuff, they gonna start so hard that when you set your jeans up against the wall, them jokers stood up like they didn't collapse, and it was like, with me personally, I try to support Black business, but at the end of the day, I focus on good business. And like one of my boys, I know he opened a restaurant up in Rocky Mountain called Bussin' the Gut Maryland Seafood. Now, I went up there to check it out. Me and my wife, everything was amazing. Like I didn't have to put hot sauce on nothing, no salt and pepper. It was like amazing. Mm-hmm. So I took my father-in-law up there like 2 weeks later, same quality. So I'm like, okay, this is cool. But then I think back to like 4 years ago, where it's the day of the year where you're supposed to support a Black business. Mm-hmm. And there was a young lady that opened a spot off Capitol Boulevard, and it was a seafood spot. And she was like, Virginia Beach, seafood. So me and my wife go, we go in there and we're like, okay, I want to try the crab cakes. Mm. Oh, we're out of those. Now, this is the first day. Now, we see the girl coming in as we come in. I guess she may have went on a run. Mm-hmm. She pulled up in a Range Rover. And it's like a new Range Rover. So we go in there. I say, I want the crab cakes. Oh, we're out of that. Okay, I want the baby flounder. I'm going down the menu. Oh, we're out of that too. And my wife is like getting irritated because everything I'm asking for. And my wife just says, what do y'all have? Mm-hmm. Oh, we have whiting. And I'm like, okay, give me a whiting sandwich. So I'm
you
like,
ain't got no bread.
I'm just saying, like, you got to have discipline. Like, you could have saved that Range Rover and put that money, that $1,600 a month payment, and put it into your business. Mm-hmm. Make sure your business is doing well. And that's the thing. To me, it's about discipline. It's not about the system. Systemic stuff don't have nothing to do with our discipline. Because if that's the case, man, I'd be in prison after high school, all that stuff. But I had to make choices and had discipline. Like, I didn't have a whole lot, but I joined the military because I ain't had no dang on plan. And it was something, it kept me busy. Mm-hmm. And I went in and ended up loving it. So it was like, we have to start having accountability for our own actions. We can't say everything is systemic. Everything is this, everything is that. And like I told the guys at our meeting, I was like, we have to, as brothers, we have to stop. Men and women are built different. Women are more emotional. They're more, we're like yin and yang. We're supposed to be the voices of reason. And I said, when I hear a dude yelling, screaming and getting in a shouting match, I'm like that. I told the guy, I said, I look at that as like feminine energy, and because guys by nature aren't supposed to be like that. Mm-hmm. But then we look at, like, I was telling them, I'm like, we have to start, when you have kids, you have to bring your son with you when you go to the basketball court and when you go hang out with the boys, or because kids soak up everything that's around them.
They're exposed to it.
But if the mother takes them to the beauty salon to sit there for 3-4 hours, and that young boy is sitting there and ears are wide open, taking in the gossip, taking it, girl, you see who, all the mannerisms, the vernacular, all that stuff, that young man is taking all of that in like a sponge. So he begins to emulate it. And I'm not talking about like, being gay or anything like that. I'm talking about gossiping. Mm-hmm. You heard of the singer Money Love?
Money Love, yeah.
Or Mooney Long, a new young sister. Uh-huh. She just did an interview the
Who's
other
on?
day. Yeah. And she was supposed to be working with J. Cole. She was in the studio in the booth, and I think
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Go ahead.
where she was talking about somebody, and
Mhm.
J. Cole came in because he was gonna lay down some bars, on her track. He'd heard her. She said this now.
Mhm.
He'd heard her talking negative about somebody, and he got up and left
Yeah.
because his energy,
Mhm.
that's the reason that men are supposed to be like.
Mhm.
Back in the days, you would see the town council and stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of dudes because the dudes was supposed to be more like supposed to think before they act a little more.
Yeah.
Women on this thing, and I'm just talking in general, and a lot of this is in humor. But you got to be something special to boil some grits before you throw it on this dude because you know that them grits is gonna stick to the skin and burn even more. Like you got to be a special type of something to put that much thought into putting hot grits. Why not just boiling water? You got to make sure you get something that stick and the pain goes. Like only a female would think about that. If he gonna hurt, I'm gonna make sure that joker hurt. And I think that's what we have to just change all this stuff that's normalized. We got to stop letting like politicians and some of these community leaders that's only after the bag.
Mhm.
They trying to take advantage of every situation. Like one time I was on here and we was talking about the Carmelo Anthony
Mhm.
and they was raising all this money.
Mhm.
And neighbors was like, they drove past the house and the whole front door was filled with Amazon packages. Like you couldn't even see the front door. Then them jokers bought an Escalade and moved to they didn't buy a house, they rented a $14,000 a month house. And now they asking for 1.4 million.
Mhm.
So I'm like, is that systemic?
No.
Is buying that Escalade, making that decision systemic? Is getting a $14,000 rental, is that systemic? Sometimes we just have to call it like it is.
Good.
Dumb decision.
And I do believe that there's a common ground or a middle ground, so to speak.
Mm.
We can't, like you said, I agree from the aspect, we can't keep, the white man trying to hold the black man down. Like that excuse is dead and gone. But we also have to acknowledge that there are obstacles in our way. Now, the question becomes, to your point, when you talk about discipline, okay, I see the obstacle. Am I not going to figure out how to get past the obstacle, or I'm just going to go the opposite way because I don't like dealing with the obstacle? You see what I'm saying? I believe that we have to find that common ground to navigate. Okay, yeah, the game is fixed. We talking about when I would use like as an analogy, in terms of like professional basketball or professional football. Well, man, the refs is doing this here, and the refs is doing that. And what do we always say as athletes? Okay, if we know that we playing 8 against 5 in basketball, then if we get a big enough lead, we play defense the way that we're supposed to play, then it don't matter what the refs do.
Yeah.
Because we know that they're out against us. So I believe that it has to be both. We have to have the discipline to persevere and fight through, but we also have to acknowledge that, okay, you know what? Y'all jokers, y'all got a bag on the side, so we ain't even snapped the ball yet. How we offside? you know what I mean? And as long as we know that that's the game that we playing, we have a right to choose whether we going to play that game or participate or not. So to your point, I agree from the aspect of getting disciplined. But me personally, what I want to see us do, because Nicole had made a comment earlier, good business over supporting black business that's slacking in quality service. She also said, growing up in my old neighborhood, there were quite a few black-owned businesses. I remember that too. I remember down on 8th Street, we had a black-owned barbershop. Different things of that nature. There, we seen success stories, but at the same time, like, how do we get back to that? How do we learn? And it was funny because I was having a conversation with somebody last week, and they were saying, why didn't you do that in the middle of the conversation? He's like, why didn't you do that for a living? I was like, what you mean? It was like, debate, you know, stuff like that. You love the debate, not argue, you love the debate. And I said, to be honest, when I look back, I could honestly admit it now. Growing up in the hood, like I remember when people used to come to our school, you know, senior day and different things of that nature, you know, school assemblies, and they would bring all these people in to talk to us. I remember growing up in the hood, I ain't even gonna lie. I don't care if it had been Barack Obama, we'd have booed him. Like everybody that came through those doors, we booed. The only person that we didn't boo was Mike Tyson. When Mike Tyson came, it was like, yo, that's Mike Tyson. You know what I mean? And they could give us the most positive, inspirational, give us the blueprint. We man, get out of here. Ain't nobody listening to that there. You know, just on that ignorant type mentality, right? Yeah. But to answer that question, I always thought about it. I said, you know what? I said, with me, you know, they used to always ask you, you know, back then, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Nicole, you was a part of those siblings. You know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, dude, you don't understand. Like the community that I live in, my reality, not Bryant Creek, not Wakefield. You know what I mean? Not Wake Forest. My reality is, bruh, I'm just trying to make it home today. I'm just trying to make it home to see my mother. Don't be asking me about no 5 years down the road, bruh. I don't even know if I'm gonna still be alive next week. That was our reality. This wasn't no movie. You know what I'm saying? So when I think about stuff like that, there, why didn't you become a lawyer? Why didn't you become a debater or a lobbyist and all these different things? I simply didn't know how. I didn't know that I could grow up and become an engineer. I didn't know that I could grow up and you know, become a different thing there, because we still had trade schools and you had still, you know, people going to become plumbers and money and HVAC and all those different type of things there. But it was like, I didn't really know about other type career options, so to speak. You know what I mean? I knew at that time I didn't want to go in the military. I was on my Muhammad Ali. The Viet Cong ain't never called me, nigga, so I ain't going to fight nobody, no white man's. You know, I was on that there. But now, as I look back as an adult, I wish I had explored the option, because all my friends, all my family that went the military route, they doing whatever they want to do now and enjoying retirement, still young. You know what I mean? So it was very beneficial, but I didn't see the benefits of it back then. So a lot of times we had a disadvantage because we don't have people like you explaining to, you know, eighth grader, hey, listen, you could go to school to be a mechanical engineer, or you could go to school to be this, or you go to all these different horticulture. I learned, that's one thing that I learned when I moved to Arkansas. I met a dude that was 28 years old. By the time he was 28 years old, he was already worth $2.4 billion. You know what he did for a living? All he did was grow strawberries.
Oh, it's money in that.
Growing up in Newark, though, I didn't even know that. I didn't know what the word. I never heard of the word horticulture. Well, I didn't learn, and not to mention the fact that as African Americans, being part of a fixed game, they were giving out grants because it wasn't enough black farmers. You know what I mean? They was literally giving people grants, money that, not loans, grants. You don't have to pay this money back, because we need to see more black farmers. We need to see more different things, and that, you know, more diversity amongst this here, because this is an opportunity for you to change generational wealth. And like I said, at the time, he was 2.4, but I remember him telling me what really blew my mind was his crop only comes in 3 months out the year. So you accumulate all this wealth out of 3 months. Now he's like, the downside of it is I wear these overalls, I stay filthy, I'm in the field, I don't get to go to family functions, I don't get to go on vacation, but it pays off when you making $1 million in a 3 month time. I think I could miss some graduations. I think I could miss some. You know what I mean? So it's like you said earlier, along with that discipline, we also got to place what we put value in. Because one thing that I always say, and it's no rule, it's just my perspective, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we talk about, like, you know, when we athletes and stuff, you know, we want to look up in the stands and see mom and daddy, you know, supporting us. Like, you know, you was always there for little Sam and at all the games and different things of that nature there. So I know that meant a great deal to him. But sometimes what people don't understand is, like LeBron James. We quick to give somebody like LeBron James a pass. Well, he's LeBron James. He's the greatest basketball player on earth right now. Of course, he can't go to every kid's game or every kid's recital. All right. But to that child, whether you LeBron James or you're a crackhead on the streets, all they know is that you're not there. You don't care about the why you're not there. You see what I'm saying? But we make excuses based off of what we feel is worthy. You know what I mean? Oh, it's different because he's making money.
Yeah, but LeBron buy Bronny S500. Bronny gonna kind of forget about Pops ain't make it, but I got this. But I just think,
as he get older, but like I said,
he gets older, but
you don't understand that.
And that's the thing. It's like I just think, like, when I hear people talk about Black excellence, I have a lot of respect for Dr. Ben Carson. He's in the history books. Like, he's the first to separate Siamese twins connected at the brain. Like he developed so many things that we use. And in Detroit, he donated $2 million. And and they renamed the school to him. He bought all new science equipment, all this stuff, Benjamin Carson High School of Science and Medicine. And when he was selected to be the secretary of HUD, them jokers in Detroit renamed the school, what is it now? Crockett Midtown High School of Science and Medicine. Because they said Ben Carson don't align with us no more. So they don't talk about him anymore because he was Secretary of HUD under Trump. And people are like, well, why is he? Well, he grew up in Section 8. His mama couldn't read. He taught himself how to read. And he became the #1 surgeon in the world when it came to doing surgery on the heart and the veins and the capillaries and the arteries. But I said, okay, they renamed the school. Are they going to give him back his $2 million that he gave to the school? Are they now going to? And he also pays full scholarships, medical scholarships for 50 kids a year. But they don't want to hear about that. So I think of like we're shying away from a lot of our Black excellence. Like, who's the lieutenant governor of Virginia? First Black person, not forget Black female, the first Black person to be the lieutenant governor of Virginia. And you don't hear nothing about her. And it's like, just because of who her political party and stuff like that. Last time I checked, Black excellence is Black excellence. We need to educate our kids on all these people that are making moves. Like, there's the Greensboro 4 that did the sit-in. Well, one of them, because he's a dang on conservative, went into the military, retired, a general. They don't recognize him for anything. They just invite the other 3. So I'm like, we have to start, like, stop being so, when you dang on Indian, and I'm talking about like coming from India, not like, here on the reservation. Them jokers, boy, acknowledge, oh, they Indian? Oh, and they don't care what their political beliefs are. Because they're like, they're making our race.
My bad, y'all. I keep jumping, man. It is thunderstorming and lightning like crazy up this way.
I think it's headed our way because we're supposed to get it maybe about midnight.
Yeah, I mean, it's like loud. I'm surprised you guys can't hear the rain and the thunder. It's crazy.
No, you got to tighten up now. You got to maintain now. Just don't be screaming the high pitch.
Nah, that don't never happen.
one of them Chris Tucker screams. But I just think, like, that makes no sense for them to change the name because of his political party. Like, like Denzel, they tried to do the same thing to him, but Denzel is like too strong to cancel, But it's like, we just have to start, instead of getting our kids like to emulate Lil Wayne. And how come when Obama was the president, nobody wasn't getting suits for their kids?
Mhm.
The suits were cheaper than the sneakers. Like you get a full suit
Mhm.
to imitate Obama.
Yeah.
So I just
And I think a lot of it got to do with too. Also, like, and it speaks to earlier what you talking about, your point of discipline. Me personally, I think a lot of it comes from too. We have to stop really caring about others' opinions of ourselves. Stop letting other people dictate, or people ask. Yeah, this is the fact that I did any show. Forget that we done celebrated 5 years. The fact that I did one show, that's a success to me. You know what I mean?
Oh, and what about your boy Saquon? How they tried to cancel that joker because he played a game of golf with the president.
Yeah.
And went to the White House, and he's like, how many opportunities do you have to go to the dang on White House?
Mhm.
Like, he's like, shoot, and then to play golf on one of the best golf courses in America. Like, if you love to play golf, you want to play on the best course.
Mhm.
But the thing is like they tried to do that to him, and it's like,
yeah, it's all about. It comes down to what do you place your value in. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
As an individual, what's valuable to you? Now I get it. They was in the same scenario, but even because we talked about it back then when it happened. But Nelly, I didn't fault Nelly for performing at the whatever it was that he went to. But I think it was a convention that he performed at.
It was one of there were like a lot of balls. Snoop performed, Soulja Boy performed, Nelly's, like there were parties all over DC.
Mm-hmm. And see, for me, not that I agree with him, but I get where you coming from, because this whole thing was when Obama was in office, he never asked me to perform at the White House. He never invited me to this here and that there. Mm-hmm. This is a chance of a lifetime. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. You know what I mean? I get the chance to go to the White House and perform on this now. How many people can say that they afforded that opportunity? If that's what you face.
Well, look at who Nelly.
Cool.
Look at Nelly's granddaddy.
Huh?
Nelly's granddaddy was a red tail.
Exactly.
Like he respects like his granddaddy taught him to respect the office of the president, or to respect certain things. So he's gonna take that opportunity because he's like, I'm representing my granddaddy.
Mm-hmm.
My granddaddy made history. So who would I be like to turn that down? Like, I understand Jennifer Hudson, she caved to the peer pressure because who dang on housed her family for 2 years? When her family, some of them got killed, mm-hmm. Who put up in the hotel in the penthouse for free for 2 years? Who listened to your story and did the Music Modernization Act, where now you have all these independent artists now able to get on Apple Music and Spotify. It was because of Jennifer Hudson's story, and that's what we have to understand is like, we have to stop. We're the only community that's like so emotional. That's like when you hear me talk, I get passionate about our community because I'm like, stop listening to the division and start listening and researching what in this you can use to better your life, to better your family. I said, because I tell people it don't matter who the president is, whether it's Obama, Biden, Trump, whoever the next, Clinton. There's always going to be bills and laws passed that everybody ain't going to like, but there's going to be something that people can use. Mm-hmm. And instead of hating on it, find the resources, because that's what our ancestors had to do. Mm-hmm. When them jokers was given the scraps from the hogs after Master ate, them jokers made the sauces. They made a feast out of scraps. Mm-hmm. And that's what I try to do is like if there's policies and stuff that come out, I try to make a feast out of the scraps, to say. And that's what I wish we would do because we have to stop, we just have to be more disciplined. And we got to start supporting sisters more, encouraging them more. Because I'm gonna tell you, my wife, she'll ask me sometimes how something looks.
Mm-hmm.
And she knows me by now because I used to say, do you want me to say what I'm supposed to say, or do you want me to tell you the truth?
Be honest, yeah.
So now she'll say, now tell me the truth. I'm like, okay, I like them shoes. I don't like that dress. And I like, and so she wants me to be honest with her.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's sometimes I think, okay, she wants me to be honest, but I don't need to be fully honest.
You don't have to be brutally honest. That's what
yeah.
myself.
But and that's what most of my friends know me when they ask me for advice. I'm like, do you want me to say what I'm supposed to say, or do you want you to tell me my truth?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, man, to be upfront with me. That's why I asked you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm like, we have to start when these sisters come with the mink lashes on top, the mink lashes on the bottom, walking around looking like you sleepy, you got sunglasses on and the lashes on top of it. Like, come on, brothers got to start being real because brothers don't care about that.
And I hate it. And sisters, a part of that, like you said, I believe what we missing here is the word accountability. Because even in that, right, we have to, and I'm not taking this opportunity, we're not bashing the sisters, right? But like you say, what comes along with that is, if I'm gonna be honest with you, respect my honesty, right?
Mm-hmm.
That don't mean that you have to conform to my honesty or my opinion, but respect my honesty. I say that because there's so many times, to your point, there are so many times where in my life, I'm just using myself as an example, where I would say ABC, right? I don't like that. And at the same time I'm saying this, I got sisters telling me, well, we do all of that for y'all. When you look at the Beyonce video, you looking at that. Okay, I'm looking at somebody on television. That don't mean that I want to see that every day. I don't want to see no makeup. I don't want to see no fake hair. I'm telling you that I don't want to see that. But yet, no, you're going to tell me what I want as a man. And that's why you do it.
You know what that's called? You know what that's called? That's called hearing, but not listening.
Exactly.
They hear you, but they're not listening. And there's a show sometimes I've been watching. I see clips. It's called Pop the Balloon, right? And they had this
episode, but I hear people talk about. I know what you talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I've never watched like a whole hour thing. It was like maybe
Does it
a
come
minute
on TV, or is it just like a YouTube thing, or what?
I think it's on YouTube, but I'll see like clips on Instagram or something. But this brother the other day, last week, this young lady, he had to pop two people's balloons, and he popped this one young lady's balloon. And he was like, you're beautiful and everything. It's just my preference is a little longer hair because she had like a pixie curls. And he's like, my preference is a little longer hair. Soon as he said that, all the other women, nobody had a pop balloon. All of them popped their balloon. And so they go down the line and they're like, well, when you talked about her hair, he's like, I'm not talking about her style. I just said my preference is longer hair.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one young lady, she's like, well, you just can't talk about black women's hair like that. We wear our hair anyway. He's like, I'm here to find a date, is my preference. If a young lady says, okay, you too short, the guys don't go off, hey, I'm short. It is what it is. Or one of the ladies said, I don't like the freeform dreads. He's like, okay, I feel that. She's a, but the females was on this joker. Like it's almost like when you say they have to accept our honesty. When you ask somebody to be honest, and now I can understand if it's being disrespectful.
Yeah,
But if
that's a
you
whole
like,
different conversation. Yeah.
yeah, so, but it's like that's the accountability aspect.
Mm-hmm.
We all brothers and sisters have to be more accountable. Like, we was talking to one dude, that joker had like 18 kids. And he was like, he had this addiction of getting women pregnant. That was his challenge. Everybody got their vices. Some people, oh man, when a girl got fungus in her big toe, oh, that's what everybody got their vice, and that was his vice. And now he thinks back, he's like, man, what was I thinking? What was I on?
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, I had to be accountable and apologize, and the trauma that I created. And then there was some of the girls I talked to, they didn't know I had like 8 more kids and 9 more kids and 10 more kids, and so the accountability, it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
But we just have to be willing to, like, if we willing to dish it, you got to be willing to receive it also.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was laughing when you said that because I remember literally the day Boomerang came out. I remember going to see it with my best friend and my girlfriend at the time, and one of her friends came along. And as we watching the movie for the first time ever, literally the day that Boomerang came out, he was like, "Man, only thing they did was change his name from Marvin to Marcus." Like, that's so you. When they got to the scene where, like, oh man, her feet had hammer. He was like, yo, man, you're the only person that complained about every little aspect. And I'm like, it's not a matter of complaining, but if you want to know my preference, I'm going to tell you my preference. Now, at the same time, although it might be my preference, that does not disqualify you if you're not preferable. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it might be my preference to have an athletic woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love athletic women. You know what I mean? That's like a weakness of mine. I see a woman on a basketball court, see a woman that knows football. She talking about a 4-3 defense. Oh, you got my attention. You feel what I'm saying? So I don't care about features. I don't care about how tall you are, short, like different things of that nature there. But just because you don't know anything about sports, what are they doing with the little thingy there? That's not going to disqualify you just because my preference is somebody that's knowledgeable in sports. You see what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
I think sometimes it gets lost in translation because once you mention what your preference is, now everybody starts disqualifying themselves based off of your preferences.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I might prefer somebody that's not diabetic because I like to eat ice cream. But just because you're diabetic and you can't eat ice cream don't mean that I'm not going to date you or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean?
It's almost like one time I was watching the Lakers play, and the girl Lizzo, a musician, she showed up.
Yeah.
Butt cheeks was out, like she had some pants on like Prince used to have, cheeks out, all that, and the camera went on her. She turned around twerking, and there's like, some kids right there. Their parents had the money, put them on courtside, and so people was like, that's nasty right there, and people started coming out like, why you body shaming and why you this, and it's like, then next thing you know, Women's Health magazine put her on the cover, saying the new healthy and all, like they're trying to promote her. And it's like certain people don't want to accept, like, I thought that wasn't tasteful.
Mm-hmm.
Like you too, like, it's nothing tasteful about somebody twerking while they're playing the flute to me. It's not tasteful. When I hear a flute or any instrument being played, it's the player that makes it tasteful. Like, you don't need, if your skill is that good, you don't need to dress like you're a stripper.
Yeah.
You know, lyrically, MC Light. Remember all the females back in our days, rappers. They was
I had the biggest crush on Light, and she had the same hairstyle for 50 years.
and the thing is like her skill is what made her good.
Yeah.
But now they putting Glorilla gospel inspirational song of the year, and I'm sitting there, and she talking about twerking in the song, like,
And that was mad disrespectful to me. Just
at,
me personally.
and that's my issue now with BET. You know, it's owned by Jewish folks, so
Yeah,
it's
I was about
like,
to say, I kind of blame Bob Johnson for that too, even though it's his right. You know, like, come on, man. You can't
yeah.
sell BET to them.
But this is the thing. Also, is like the last few years, all that was on BET was trap music. Like, you know, there's black jazz musicians. You know, there's black country musicians. Like back in the days, like when I was in high school.
Trust me, I couldn't stand it. I was happy that we had a channel. Did I agree with the programming? Absolutely not, because there's only so many times that you go watch the same video. On Video Soul, on 106 in Park, all these different shows, yeah, they showing the same exact videos. Like, we are more than just music. Teach me about some things that give me the option to turn the channel, because I don't want to hear y'all talking about black scientists. Because you're talking about black educators. You know what I mean? Give me the opportunity. Just don't give me music videos 18 hours out of 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
I was totally not a fan of that either when it came to BET.
Well, that's the thing. Like, well, you know, I'm talking about their awards. Back then with Bob Johnson, you had the black jazz. I mean, they even had Kenny G on BET because, you know,
we
brothers and sisters love Kenny G.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like, but to me, black music or black entertainment is more than trap music. It's more than mumble rap. It's more than, you know, those things right there. And I hope that they start to get back to that. You know, even though I just hope they start listening to other people. You know, don't just use like the old heads to get people to come to see your music. You know, like I think Eminem said it once, don't put us, say we're gonna be there, but then you give the awards and everything to all these no names. You know, and I think that's the main part right there.
And we also have to be supportive as well. You know what I mean? Because I can remember having said that, and it's almost a contradiction, but I remember when they first started the show, like the Summit. I don't even remember what the premise of the Summit was, but I'm like, man, I don't want to watch this. But I just finished saying, complain that we needed more diversity and more alternatives than just music videos. But the time that they do this, I won't support the show. So we definitely have to be a little bit more supportive too. You don't have to, you know, it's almost like the way I look at it now with the way everybody is. You got NBA players showing up at the WNBA games now, and everybody's trying to become bigger supporters of women's basketball. Okay. And like I said, you know, everybody want to always harp on the fact that, and we've talked about this in the past too, but everybody they're not making enough money. They're not making enough money. Okay, you saying that, but how many WNBA games have you been to? How many WNBA jerseys have you purchased? So you can't justify them making all this kind of money if you're not going to, if you know what I mean?
Man, can I be real for a second? You heard of the player Dewana Bronner?
Nah.
She's like the second highest scorer in the WNBA.
Okay.
She had signed with Indiana, and then so she basically quit because the word on the street is that the Indiana Fever has more heterosexual women on than any other team in the league. So she basically didn't get a starting position. I think she wanted to start, but whoever she was competing for, they was balling out a little more, I guess. So the last 5 games, she just quit. And she said she wants to go to where her fiance is in that place for Phoenix. And then, like, I'm looking at Dallas, they just traded the girl Alyssa Smalls, who's dating her teammate Dejanay Carrington, I think her name is.
Mhm.
So it's like you're not focused on growing, your platform. Like you don't see this in the NBA where teammates is dating, or they're demanding to be traded so they can be near their fiance. Like the dudes is handling their business, and that's, to me, that's the biggest difference. Like they're gonna try to force Angel Reese down your throat, like she's the all-star. And to me, you you can't force people like Luca that played for Dallas. He
Mhm.
went to a Dallas Wings game and then he gave somebody a shout out for getting rookie of the year. And Luca posted on his Instagram, and then one of the girls on the Dallas Wings said to the person that don't never go to a game, like, what do you know? And then they started, going on her, like showing pictures of him at the games, like he go to the games regular.
Mhm.
Like it's almost like the NBA, they don't force people or pressure people into going to their games.
Mhm.
The WNBA, these players, why don't we get, okay, you want to be independent and you want it to be about you. So why are you pressuring everybody to go?
Mhm.
You shouldn't have to do that. Your skill, nobody has the pressure. Yeah, they got marketing, but nobody has a pressure people to go to NBA games.
Or your focus should be whether you show up or not, whether it's 5 or 5,000. I'm gonna do what I do. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and that's the thing. But if you do that, because they try to start the drama between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, and I'm gonna be real. If I'm a coach and I got a choice between one or the other, I'm going with the highest scorer in NCAA history, men or women.
And she's more marketable.
Oh, but I'm just saying, like
Yeah.
her play, she's so good. She gets
Basketball
all of
alone,
that
yeah.
because of Jordan's sell, because he's the dang on GOAT.
Mhm.
And but before that, everybody wore Converse. They were just different colors. Converse was the official NBA sneaker. And it's like Jordan, if he was a scrub, nobody would have been wearing Jordans. Nobody would be wearing. He's so good. He still has the number one. He ain't played in 20 years and still have the number one selling shoe.
Mhm.
It's because his style of play. And that's what to me, make her so good is she beat, who was that, Pistol Pete record. And
Yeah.
Pistol Pete only played 3 years.
And he still had the record that lasted over close to 40 years. Like
She just broke it like her last,
Yeah.
but people don't realize Pistol Pete only played 3 years in college.
Mhm.
And matter of fact, you could kind of say 2.5 years, because as a freshman,
Yeah.
he didn't play,
Mhm.
but then at one point he got hurt, and this is also without 3-pointers.
Yeah.
His record just got broke without 3-pointers. So it's like, so that's the thing right there. It's like you can't force somebody to be a fan.
Mhm.
Focus on your art. Stop focusing on being next to your fiance. If y'all strong in a relationship, guess what? They're gonna be home when you get there.
Yeah.
Or like you focus on the wrong stuff. And I don't like being forced, like when they trying to force all these NBA players to like shout, because look how the WNBA players stab Kyrie Irving in the back.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't know that he gave up, what was it? He paid like the salaries when they did the sit out or something,
Mhm.
and the WNBA wasn't getting paid. Kyrie Irving gave like, what was it, $2.5 million
Yeah, it was 2 something.
of his money to pay all the WNBA players. But then when that stuff happened with him just posting a movie,
Mhm.
how many WNBA players came to support him?
No.
0. That's the issue that I have, with the stuff like that, because when you talk about like things, I look at like when Colin Kaepernick did that Netflix special about the NFL being like slavery, and had that stuff going, but now you're but begging to get into it. And it's like I'm like the opportunity that pro sports gives young brothers to become millionaires. Like 80% of the NBA, 85% are black, right? What's the percent in NFL? Like 70%?
Yeah.
Are so
70%, yeah.
Well, it's up there. The thing is like all these jokers got the potential to be millionaires. How many opportunities you getting paid to do something you would do for free? And you making millions, and that's the initial contract. We ain't even talking about endorsements. So it's like, that's why I'm like, when I hear Colin Kaepernick talk about, it's like slavery and this, because he listening to his fiance or his wife, whoever she is, she this Black Panther sister soldier, and it's like you don't realize how you burn your fiance from getting jobs. When Ray Lewis was about to get him a job in Baltimore, and she posted that picture of the Samuel Jackson hugging in Django. She posted that, and next thing you know, Ray Lewis was like, they don't even want to deal with that.
And it's all about, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but it's all about your value system, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Is the like you said, you get a chance to make millions of dollars, but are you going to stand on what you stand on, or is it about the money? Because everybody has a different priority. Everybody has a different stance, as far as how important money is. We all know that we need money to live, especially in a capitalistic society. But it's like, all right, so I've always said the same thing too, and people always say, man, you got to stop that. This is not slavery, man. Slavery was forced on people and all that there. And I'm like, what I mean is, it's not just like slavery. It's the same thing as is the same practice, so to speak, without the negative connotation. They just removed the negative connotation, but it's the same practice. What I mean by that is, as a football fan, as a former athlete, I remember I religiously, bruh. That's why I was so happy when they came out with the NFL Network. I would religiously, literally, it was times where I'm ashamed to admit it, but it was times where I would take my vacation around the combine, because all I'm going to do is sit and watch all day coverage of the combine. I'm watching the linemen, I'm watching the tight ends, I'm watching the receivers, all do they drill, run their 40s, how fast they can jump and all that there. And I remember watching the movie Mandingo. And what's my man name? The neighbor on the Jeffersons, Mr. Bentley.
Yeah.
I remember seeing with Mr. Bentley, he was actually a slave owner, right? And they getting off the ship, the slaves coming off the ship. He stripping them naked, checking out their butt cheeks and making them live up their sacks and open your mouth, and checking their gums and the teeth and all this other kind of stuff, digging in their mouth and all this other kind of stuff.
Like they animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like straight property. And I said, you know what? We removed the racist connotation of it, but how is the combine any different? We want to see how fast you can run, how jump, because I'm going to buy you like a piece of property. And I'm all about the business of winning. So it's almost like the same practice, but we learn how to capitalize on it and to not make it look racist anymore. You know what I mean? But it's like, and as I get older, I started literally feeling some way watching this. Like, man, it's like you out here dancing because you're trying to get it, but you don't realize that when all you care about is football. You're not thinking about that when you just want to be a football player. I don't care about all the semantics. I don't care about where this practice came from. Like you were talking about with the neighbor earlier. I think it's a little bit easier when you come from another country to be able to celebrate the 4th of July and those different things there, because you don't know the history of this place. You know what I mean?
If you look at, I'm going to send you the questions for the test to become a naturalized citizen.
Okay.
Like, what are the first 5 presidents? What is the 12th Amendment? What's the 6th Amendment? Like, their quiz, like when you get naturalized, you have to take an exam.
Yeah,
And
I know that part. Yeah.
that's the thing is like, so when you say about like the history there, I personally feel like going through high school, especially now, jokers getting it. Well, I don't mean in a derogatory way. People that's getting naturalized know more about the country than the people going through high school now, because they got to take that dang on 80-word test.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 80-question test that covers all of this stuff right here. And I keep it on my hip because I don't never want to talk in blurs or make it complex. When somebody say like it was the big talk about the 14th Amendment, and I'm like, that belonged to black folks. Like I said, these white folks trying to give Hispanic folks was ours.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, they're the same as black folks. I said, no, black folks was forced to come here. They coming across the border voluntarily.
Mm-hmm.
I said, it's a big difference.
It's definitely a difference.
So I'm
Out
like,
of those 80 questions, let me ask you this: out of those 80 questions, is when did slavery end? Is that one of those questions?
well,
the test
when was the
like,
well, it asks you, they have to answer a question, and it's about Juneteenth.
okay.
And see, this is the thing. Like, we got people here in North Carolina, but I know folks in Texas that it's been a state holiday for decades.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like it's here, and that's what I tell people. Like, we have to stop relying on white folks or the Department of Education to educate us on our history. We need to learn it ourselves, because a lot of the history that they teaching is incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my
Yeah, don't mean that is the truth.
yeah, but because I think Denzel said it best: if you repeat it enough, you begin to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing with, like, that's something I had, like, downstairs. I have books that I taught my son who the first pro black MLB player was, Major League Baseball player was. Moses Fleetwood Walker, 50 years before Jackie Robinson.
Not Jackie Robinson, exactly. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But when you go to school and they teaching you the wrong history.
Yeah.
So I tell folks all the time, like, stop relying. Why are you upset because about the government? Why are you relying on the government to teach you your own history? Asian folks teach their own history to their own. Indian folks teach their own history. Native Indians teach their own history. They don't rely on the government. They teach it to themselves. Jewish folks do that. Why we got to rely on the government? Because what the government teaches us, half of it lies anyways.
Absolutely, I agree.
So that's what I mean, like the accountability and stuff. We have to start taking ownership. Like, when I hear somebody so offended by what's going on in Gaza, why aren't you as offended about the conditions of our community? Like, we want to focus on the other side of the world, but you got stuff here. Chicago this past weekend, 20 people was shot. Like, ain't nobody heard nothing. Them dang on 6 illegals that killed that sister on the way to South Carolina. You ain't hear nothing about that.
And it's like the middle ground again to me, because it's like the same thing I always say, and I can't stress it enough on this particular show because it's my platform. But I'm never a fan of a bully. What's going on in Gaza to me is absolutely absurd. So I get your point. We should be offended, but it's like I was talking to my mom one day. I said, it's almost like Dr. King said, I'm just paraphrasing, but an atrocity, or MLK, an atrocity anywhere should be an atrocity to everybody that looks like us. You know what I mean? It's like when Iran happened, or what didn't happen. We're not even gonna get into that because a whole wormhole, rabbit hole. But you know, nobody's talking about in places like India, where these little girls, they turn 10, 11 years old, they getting their genitalia removed because that's a custom. That's an atrocity for how we grow up over here in this side of the world. You know what I mean? So
Well,
just
I mean, you can say it's kind of like how boys get circumcised.
exactly either one. You know,
That's
like
a
you
piece
said,
of their genitalia,
yeah.
and it's like also understanding like the history. Like, when I was in the military, I went to Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the Middle East, and when you begin, matter of fact, that's over there. I started to transition into being a Muslim, but then after a decade or so, I was like, you know what? I'm just not pulled to it. Like it was new, it was different. I learned a lot, but I believe in Christ, like so but that was my learning phase. I was that militant one trying to sneak to the Million Man March because the Nation of Islam was considered a extreme group by the US military.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got caught going there, and me and my roommate, we was like, man, we going to the Million Man March. We want to represent. We got copies of the Final Call in the barracks hidden, like, and it's like we go through phases, but when I look at the history and when I study the history of Gaza, you know, people from Gaza could go work in Israel. Like if you look at before 2005, it was a lot different. But then when the Palestinians voted for the Hamas leadership, because Hamas leadership, you can look on YouTube and see their videos. They had the baseball caps. They're saying, yeah, if you vote for us, we're not gonna let you become westernized, Americanized. You're not gonna be like America. You're gonna have respect here and all that. So guess what they did? They voted for them jokers. Next thing you know, them Palestinian women that used to wear skirts and everything, Shia law, face covered, all that. You get caught, you lose a hand. Like they voted for that. And then when the Israel and the US offered to give them what was it, $250 million to build, the leadership was like, no, we don't want that because that means we have to use contractors. They don't want nobody knowing they was building all them underground tunnels. So they turned down the 250 million, to help build. So it's like, it's one of those things that like how I hear people saying, oh, if you voted for Trump, yeah, you get what you asked for, you get what you voted for. I have that same energy for them jokers. They voted for them dang on militants to be over them. Just like that. In Iran, it's the same thing. Like if you look at, you can Google Chat GPT how Iran was in the 70s. Women wearing bathing suits at the beach, like driving, going to college, all of that stuff. And then when that dang on supreme leader took over, Shia law, everything's covered. And when the last administration opened up that access to that $20 billion, that's when them jokers attacked. And I tell people it's just like when Pearl Harbor, 900 soldiers got killed during Pearl Harbor. Well, guess what? Guess how many the U.S. killed in retaliation? 2.5 million. When the World Trade Center got hit, 2,900 people died. But guess how many Afghans got killed? 450,000. So it's like, that's what I meant when I said earlier, like we're not the angels that some of our politicians claim that we are. Our hands is just as dirty. And when I hear people say, oh, well, the people wanted, I said 2.5 million people want the enemy. I say, yeah, they took out 900 soldiers at Pearl Harbor, but was that really 900, 2.5 million? It's not even close. To me, that was genocide.
Mhm.
You know, you literally, can you imagine 2.5 million? That's almost like isn't that like the New York State almost, right?
And then on top of that, how they treated the Koreans that were actually American citizens, putting all of them in concentration camps and everything else because of Pearl Harbor. That was totally, you know what I mean? They ain't had nothing to do with that.
Oh yeah, but that was, I mean, they got a taste of what black folks have been dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what I mean. That's
And I get
look.
it, but two wrongs don't make it right. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah, you're exactly right.
It's an atrocity regardless, but yeah.
But I just, you know, I look at the, you know, I like to research history and stuff like that. And I just feel we got so many issues here we need to address
Absolutely.
that I don't spend my energy on what's happening in Gaza. Like when I see you got some people here, and I'm one of those people that's like, look, if you don't like America, leave. Like ain't nothing stopping you from leaving.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and all the people like in the last election, they're like, oh, if this clown win, I'm leaving America. Every one of them jokers still here. Everyone.
Including Jimmy Kimmel.
You know, like, and then the ones that chose to leave, they miserable. They found out when they went to all these countries, like Canada, for example, people that went to Canada and they're like, Canada have free healthcare. Yeah, but guess what? You get cancer and need an MRI, your appointment is going to be 10 months away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's free, but by the time 10 months happen, your stage 1 could be stage 3.
Free has a price, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the thing. And then all the other countries like Denmark, Dubai, United Emirates and stuff, they have free education, free healthcare. But guess what? They have zero immigration. Like you've never heard Rick Ross and anybody flexing with a house that they bought in Dubai. They flexing a penthouse that they're renting, but in Dubai, in the UAE, only citizens can buy homes. Period. They don't allow outsiders to own land.
Yeah.
So that's why you know, I'm like them. Why can't we be for people here? When I see all these jokers just coming across when black folks laid the foundation for America, and them jokers, they giving our sisters in $225 on EBT the last 30 days. But you giving Jorge $1,400 a month, not on the EBT card, on a Visa debit card, where he can spend it at the club. He can spend
it. Makes sense. Yeah.
Like you limiting the people who helped build this country. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's systemic. But what I tell people, you better open their eyes, because Hispanic folks is 19% of the population.
Yeah. They surpassed us.
Black folks is 13.5%.
Yeah, they surpassed us.
So who's and back in 72, black folks was 13.5% of the population. Mm-hmm. Hispanic folks is only 3.2%. So they've already excelled. A lot has to do because they Catholic. They don't believe in abortions. Them jokers, we're going to raise this child, you know. And that's the thing, is like, I told somebody, I said by 2032, that election, I said the black vote ain't even going to matter no more. Because the Hispanic community are probably going to be about 25% of the population. And then you got the white folks as what, 29%, you know, 30%. I think they're 33% now. Mm. Like we're getting diluted down. Mm. Just like how they try to dilute women, you know, letting dudes become women and all this stuff. Like I said, you know how strong, I was joking with this lady the other day. I was like, you know how strong men are? We won Miss World. We got Time Magazine's Woman of the Year. I said, that's how strong men are. We taking all the women's awards. That don't make no sense. But that of course that could be something else. I know you said freestyle, but
Yeah, yeah.
I like dialogue. It's
Hmm.
that's why I like watching. I fall in each week for you because you always keep it live. You have some people on here, especially last week. Last week was really powerful.
Yeah, I said I'm gonna have Lamar back on too, man. The nice young fella, man, and doing some positive things. I actually want to get the coach that he was shouting out on as well. You know what I mean? But that's what I'm about. Stories like that. There, everybody sharing their own experience, and like you say, at the end of the day, I want to see us all win. Like
Yeah,
you and Nicole was talking about earlier. I'm all about supporting Black business too, but I care more about quality more than I care about. You know what I mean? So let's
yeah,
up our game when it comes to supporting Black business. Okay, yeah, you want people to support you, but don't be coming at me, with half services. Or
and
don't
saying, man, you got to give me, man. We brothers, man. You got to give
exactly.
me. I'm like, that's not as you don't use that as an excuse for why you subpar.
Yeah.
But also before I forgot, I want to tell you if you the two brothers that was on with me, I wanted you to apologize to them for me because one of them was saying people of color.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like that's like I'm not gonna say it's a trigger, but I can't stand that word.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, we black. We not people of color, we black.
Which one you talking about? Which episode?
It was your boy up there that played ball. He started the flag football.
Oh, wrong. When we
Him
on
and then the other dude, yeah, had the
yeah.
beard game going.
Uh-huh. Tahit.
Yeah. And yeah, so when they was talking about, they kept using the term people of color. I'm like, man, that's what white folks use because they trying to tie us in with Hispanic folks and Indian folks when those people don't care nothing about us.
Yeah.
I said, so we black.
Gotcha.
Let's focus on black. Stop letting them dilute us down. So that I say, I know I'm light skinned, but I'm black.
It's
You
funny
know,
too, because like even when we were talking about, we started off with 4th of July. It's like it's funny that you brought up Juneteenth because I know it's not popular opinion in our community too, but I'm like, now I'm all about cookouts and a day, any day they're gonna acknowledge Black people or whatever. But I'm like, should we really be celebrating a day that's glorifying us getting the news 2 years later? like
mm-hmm.
the bill had already been passed. So
Well, that's the reason why education is so important because they kept the slaves from reading, learning how to read. They kept. That's why I hate it now. Florida and Georgia just signed a new law that kids have to start learning cursive again. Because guess what's written in cursive? All the documents that we need to learn instead of relying on somebody else to tell us. Now, that's how you become educated because you got to think now you could tweet something and it's out there. You put on social media, it gets out there quick. You got to think back in the 1800s, they didn't have that. They had the mail, and then the guy that's supposed to deliver the notice to say slaves are, the Emancipation Proclamation. Hey, I'll give you $10 to just drop it on the ground and leave. So
I think
had.
I think a lot of it was, like we talk about cock blocking. I think a lot of it was that too, where you know what, they don't know no better, so why not get, not everybody, but I imagine there was some slave owners that's like, you know what, they got it and read it and knew that those people was free, but you know what, now I'm gonna milk this as long as I can. I'm not gonna let them know the information that you don't work for me no more. Like you say, like what he tell them in life, Dan Beatty. I'm not your boss. No, I'm not your boss.
They would scare him and they would be like, okay, y'all free, but you see how I've taken care of y'all. I put clothes on your back. Yeah. I let you get them pig feet. Aren't those pig feet good? I let you. And they're like, you go out there, you're gonna have to find it for yourself. When I've been giving it to you, you know.
Manipulation. Yeah.
So a lot of people, a lot of slaves didn't want to go because it's almost like when you have guys that do a long stint in prison.
Yeah.
Soon as they get out,
They want to go back.
so scared that they break the law again so they can get right back in there because that's what's normal to them. Like, what's that movie? I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, I think, where old boy came out, Antonio Farvis had the aquarium boots, and and it's something it could be just like that. Like, imagine how like people dress 10 years ago. Imagine going on the inside how cars looked and all that. Then you come out, look at how people dress and look at how cars look. It's like a dang on space movie.
Yeah, it's like Shawshank Redemption when the old dude that was the librarian, he got out. And next day, he done hung himself because it's like the world had changed all around him. You know what I mean? So I definitely get it. But before we got out of here, man, I just wanted to show you this. Can you see it?
Yeah.
I was there, baby. and literally one of the highlights of my life. It was let's just say it was an experience. It was definitely something I'll never forget.
I know it was powerful because this is the thing. This is what the Army did, the military period. They had officers up there just videoing. And then they released all the videos, sent them to a lot of the units, and the commanders and stuff was just watching the video to see if they saw any of their soldiers there.
Gotcha.
And if they saw you in that video, you got a field grade Article 15. That means you getting a bad conduct discharge. So you can't use it. Like, I'm like, at least give them a general. Like the trans people that's getting put out the military, they're not getting a bad conduct. They're getting a general discharge. So they can still use, okay, I was a soldier, I was this and that. So they can still use that to get other benefits.
Okay.
But you get a bad conduct discharge, you can file for no claims with the military. You don't get no benefits. So that's what they was trying to do. And to me, that right there was that systemic, I would say back then, but because, and that also made me I learned more about Malcolm X because I was in the first part of his book. Well, the second part, when he first became a Muslim, how he was like, oh, white people can't help me. And I was like that, but I should have read the entire book, but I just wanted to read what I felt reflected how I felt.
Yeah.
And ignore the rest. Like I wanted to watch CNN, but I didn't want to watch Fox or anything else. I just wanted to focus on what was in my heart, that amplified my anger. But I've definitely grown because some people I run into now, they're like, dude, I'm shocked you still alive. Like, because I was like one of them gung-ho soldiers, and I'm completely different now. So, I do appreciate my story and my history, but I just want our people to focus on our people. Stop with the smoke screens and let's stop getting offended about anything outside of our community. Because they're taking houses, taxes going up again. And that's the new way of redlining and all that. They tax you out of your property. They tax you out of your home that you paid off. Yeah. I'm like, that's why I kind of like respect the governor of Florida, because he's trying to get property taxes removed. He's like, if you pay for your house, it's your house. But if you got to pay tax, it's like you're a lifetime renter, paying all them taxes. So, that's why I said it's like certain things I may not agree with a lot of things, but I'm all for not having to pay no dang on property tax. I'm all for
that's right.
not having to pay no federal income tax on for anybody making under 150K a year, because that's me. That's I'm gonna fall up, and people I care about falls up under that. So we're gonna see how stuff goes, and I tell folks just roll with the punches, but we got to be prepared. So no matter what happens in 2028 or 2032, we're all you prepare for anything. The military taught me prepare for the worst. So anything that happened, you prepare for something worse than that.
No doubt. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get you on here with my brother Kevin Downey. He another military background, and he been on. I call him our residential doctor. He been on a few shows in the past. But yeah, I would love to hear you guys chop it up on different, just your different respective, outside of things, just the way y'all view things and different things of that nature there. But yeah, man, I'm getting to get up out here so I can get me something to eat. So everything's shut down.
Yeah, get some rest. I'll be out in Greensboro Thursday.
This Thursday?
Yeah.
You got the number, man. Holler at me.
Yeah, they doing some stuff to the house out there. So they're building a new community center right across the street. We're gonna have basketball courts, swimming pools. It's right off a Gateway. When you come off 40, what is that? Something Gate, the main road, but it's right near
East Lee Street, or the old East Lee Street exit.
It might be there. Like, soon as you come off the exit, there's like two gas stations side by side. The A&T research place is on the right. Yeah, so going down there, and
City.
They used to have a painting of the Greensboro 4 on the side of the building.
Okay.
But they demoed that whole parking lot, and they're building that complex. So it's gonna be real nice. That's right across the street. So
over there by that's the way you go to Bennett College.
Yeah. Everything's right around there. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But I'll be hanging out about half a day out there, just doing some stuff at the house.
Bet. That's what's up. But yeah, man, we gonna get it together. Like I said, I'm gonna work that out to get you and Kev on 1 week together. But everybody stay safe, man. I hope everybody enjoy the rest of their week. Be safe out here for those that are celebrating the 4th of July. Those that don't, and still enjoy your day off. However you want to do it. But yeah, man, y'all have a good week. Stay safe out there. Be intentional about loving everybody while you can, man.
Yeah.
You was gonna say something?
No, I was gonna say, I know next year you can have something to talk about, because that P. Diddy verdict will be in all of them.
Oh, yeah, next week. Next week.
Yeah, that's why I said all of them, because they said out the 5, they already done came back with 4. They didn't say if it's guilty or not guilty, but the jury said that they're having a issue with the racketeering. Mm-hmm. So they're still, and that's the serious charge. The other ones is like some probation and all, because he's like first time offender. So it's not going to be a whole lot, but that RICO charge was going to be a life sentence.
Yeah, and it was to the point where you notice that once the prosecution rests, the mother just started dropping all kind of charges, and I'm like, come on, man. It's almost like the little baby that I posted with Dave Chappelle in his monologue. Like, where have you ever seen a RICO case that involves only one person? Like,
exactly. That's what everybody's like. And then
don't make no sense.
Yeah, even with the other charges, like when the defense came up, the defense didn't even call no witnesses, because they're like, the people that the prosecution used, we ate them up. Like, the stripper said that he was paid whether he had sex or not. Mm-hmm. So that killed that witness. Like, he said, I was just paid to be there, not to necessarily, do something. So it's like,
he wasn't the one to pay the money.
Yeah. So
he was still removed from a person removed from him. He might have been the source of the income, but he didn't pay the. You know what I mean? He wasn't booking the hotel rooms, and
they were interviewing people outside of the courtroom, and all of them was like, the only thing I think he guilty of Yeah, domestic violence
and being a freak.
and being a freak.
And the domestic violence, that part wasn't even a part of this because she settled outside of court. Not
Yeah.
saying that DV, not saying that the DV is okay. I get that. But that shouldn't have been a part of this case whatsoever because she done settled. And I'm quite sure she signed an NDA talking about that she couldn't dispute. So that was crazy for her to even be the first witness, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I always felt like it was all smoke and mirrors. I thought it was just something to put on for the people. I never really felt like he was gonna really do significant time or be found guilty. I just felt like it was all this thing. And if he do get found guilty, it's gonna be another notch where Trump get to say, you know, I'm a part of him or whatever the case may be. I have the hard time. The integrity of everything in today's society, bro. You don't know what's real anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because it seems to be we always find out however many months, years, decades later, it was somebody orchestrating something, pulling some strings. So I just like if you hit them with domestic violence or just one charge, but a RICO case, I'm like, come on, bro. I can't see him going down on no RICO charges.
No, that's what everybody was saying. They're like, even people that was interviewing outside the courtroom, it was like, I've never seen a RICO case with just one person. Like even the YSL, they had like 50 people, you know, like, and they got off of that.
Gotti, all of my bosses that's ever been dealt with RICO, like, it's never just one person.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like I said, man, we gonna get together. And man, like I said, enjoy your 4th, man. And I'm gonna holler at you. But everybody else, thank y'all for tuning in. Thanks for watching this week. We'll see y'all next Tuesday. And as usual, is signing off. DeAndre and Lyson, know that Daddy loves you intentionally, but I also love you unconditionally. So next week, peace.